In this video, I'm looking at the BGVP ArtMagic VG4. This is a quad driver multi-BA unit and it has something interesting. Let's get into it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. So we're going to start with a quick look at the box here. There's not much to say about the box, it's very simple. But inside you'll see that, it has quite a nice accessory bundle. Pretty much identical to the one that came with the DN2, and that's a good thing because you get 6 pairs of silicone ear tips, 2 pairs of foam ear tips, plus there is an additional 3 pairs of tips in the case here, and obviously you also get this clamshell zipper case, and you get a little cleaning tool and something to manipulate the switches. So nice to see a well-rounded bundle like that. But without any further ado, it's time to look at the star of the show, which is the actual earphones. Let's move in for a closer look. Okay, so here are the earpieces, and they are beautifully built. 3D printed shells, I assume. There's about 8 different colors it's available in. And as far as build quality goes, they are just flawless, absolutely gorgeous. I think this is called the transparent purple. But anyway, you can see through the shell there. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but you can clearly see the 4 balanced armature drivers there. That's the dual Sonion driver, and those are the 2 Knowles balanced armature drivers. The nozzle is a dual bore design, pretty standard. It's got a little lip on there, so ear tips stay in place fairly nicely. And of course on the back here are the tuning switches, 3 of them. The one on the left basically adds a little bit of treble, one in the middle for the mids, and the one on the right boosts the bass, lower mid-range, and to a lesser degree the core mid-range. And for good or bad, BGVP has decided to stick with the MMCX connectors for now. I prefer the 2-pin myself, but I know a lot of people still like MMCX. In terms of comfort, these are really, really good. You can wear these for, well, I can wear these for a very long time, hours at a time, with absolutely not an issue whatsoever. They are supremely comfortable and just overall really nice shell. So now let's have a look at the cable, and this is the same cable that came with, I believe, the DM7, the BGVP DM7. It is a hybrid cable. It's got copper and silver wires intertwined. It is very supple. It handles really well, but it does have a bit of microphonics. However, once the music starts playing, you really probably won't notice any microphonics at all. But if you do, it's got a little chin slider here that's very effective, and that can basically eliminate any of the microphonics. Okay. So it's time to talk about how the VG4 actually sounds now, and it has, well, first of all, I'm going to be talking about the reference position for the switches, which is all switches down. And this is basically fairly linear, and the switch on the right is the one that makes the most difference in terms of sound signature, and this one increases the bass and lower mid-range by about 5 decibels and the core mid-range by 2 to 3. The other 2 switches make much smaller differences, so I'm only really going to talk about the reference position and the 001, or the rightmost switch up. So in the reference position, these have a linear presentation, very nicely balanced. It is a light, spacious, airy sound, still with fairly good definition. but it's a kind of an easygoing sound. It's a little slightly on the warmer side of neutral. It does have good treble energy, but let's break it down first of all, starting with the bass. And when it comes to balanced armature bass, I admit I have a preference for the Sonion drivers. I think they just produce a more natural bass that sounds more like a traditional dynamic driver, in terms of mid bass anyway. So the mid bass on these it's nice and punchy. It's a very realistic sounding bass, and it does sound quite a lot like a dynamic driver in terms of mid bass. The texture is quite good. Obviously it's very controlled, it's very tight. When we talk about the sub bass, however, you know, like all multi-BA IEMs, they don't really match a dynamic driver in terms of sub bass. You don't get that real authoritative, deep reaching rumble, and that's something I miss sometimes. But having said that, the VG4 here does have very good bass extension, but it just has a light sub bass rumble. You won't really feel it moving in your ears. It doesn't move a lot of air, but it is there, and the extension is fairly decent. So moving on to the mid-range now, and the mid-range is really where the VG4 shines. It is quite transparent, especially with the switches down. I'll talk about the other position now while we're here. When you flick the rightmost switch up, it adds quite a bit of body and a bit of warmth to the overall sound. It makes the notes a little bit rounder, gives them more roundness, but at the same time it maintains the clarity and the detail. So BGVP have done a really good job with the tuning on these, I think. Some people will prefer the sound of the reference tuning here, which makes vocals, male vocals in particular, a little leaner, a little more sort of neutral. With the switch up, they fill out a bit, they become a bit more rounded and robust. Both positions are actually quite viable for me. I found myself switching back and forth quite a lot, and I didn't really have a preference for either one, but I did like to switch them over sometimes depending on the type of music I was listening to. For example, I believe that the reference position here is better for things like classical music, whereas obviously things like hip hop and EDM, you want a bit more bass, so you flick that switch up and you're good to go. So yeah, the mid-range, good resolution, good clarity, instrument separation is really good, it's on point. Male and female vocals sound very nice. Probably vocals sound a touch, well, to my ear, a touch better in the reference position. With the switch up, like I said, they do gain a bit of warmth and body, and it's a more musical approach overall in that configuration. But you know, whichever one works for you is obviously the best one in my opinion. So let's move on to the treble finally, and the treble on these, it is fairly energetic and it is a little bit forward, but it's not a huge treble. It's definitely not imposing, but it is somewhat bright. It's not really what I would call bright on most occasions, but it does have a fair bit of energy. But the treble, just like everything else, the mid-range and the bass, it's very smooth. It's buttery smooth, but it still has sparkle. It's a very airy treble. It's a nice open sound. It's light. It gives a nice width to the soundstage, and it also provides a good amount of detail throughout the sound. In addition, it also provides clarity throughout the mid-range, and it gives percussion instruments a nice clean attack. And overall, I really like this treble. I think it's better than the treble on the BGVP DM7, because I found the DM7 treble to be trying a little too hard. It was it kind of sounded metallic and a little bit artificial, whereas this one has, to my ears, a much more natural timbre, and it just sounds better overall. It's smoother, it's rounder, but it's up there, it's energetic, and it provides detail, which is basically all you want from treble. Now, let's have a quick comparison with the TS-MR3 Pro. Now the TSMR here only has 3 balanced armature drivers, as the name would suggest. They are 3 Knowles drivers, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that. It's a long time since I reviewed these. But these also have 3 switches on the back. And for their version of reference tuning, which is called balanced, it is actually the switch for 0 of down, up, down, or 0, 1, 0. And the signature of the TSMR here is a little more V-shaped. It is a little bit boosted in the bass and the treble, which of course means the mid-range is slightly recessed a little bit in a sense. But, well, this is where it gets complex. Let's go back to the bass real quick, because I found the bass notes to have a slightly cleaner or more defined leading edge, but they don't have the same kind of weight and body that I love those Sonion drivers for. So the decay on the bass is a little bit faster as well. In terms of the mid-range, I actually think these have more clarity than the VG4. The TSMR Pro 3 Pro has a little bit more clarity and resolution in the mid-range. Vocals are more articulate, but at the same time, they are not as forgiving as the VG4, and they definitely aren't quite as smooth as the VG4. Although there's not a lot separating them, they do have a kind of similar characteristic. But yeah, the TSMR, a bit more clarity, a little less forgiving on bad recordings. In terms of the treble, I think there's not a lot separating the two. They're fairly similar, although, like I said, in relative to the mid-range, the treble is a little bit lifted on this one. So preference overall, you know, I could go either way. It really doesn't matter. If I was looking for a daily driver, something that I wanted to listen to every day for extended periods of time, I would go with the VG4 just for that smoothness, that buttery, silky mid-range, and that really nice, soft, airy treble. So I like the VG4 for that. So having said that, let's summarize what I like about the BGVP ArtMagic VG4, apart from the name, which I don't like. I love the shells. I think they're beautiful. They're gorgeous. Ergonomics wise, they are very comfortable. They're lightweight. Build quality is stellar. I love the versatility that the switches add, and I love the smoothness and the resolution in the mid-range. I love the airy treble, and like I said, I think it's a better treble than the DM7 had. And what I don't like about these, well, nothing really, nothing except for the sub bass, which I do miss having that dynamic driver for those really deep, low, hard-hitting sub bass notes. But apart from that, you know, these are fantastic. I think these are one of the best multi-BA IEMs I've heard around this price. And of course, I forgot to mention the price once again. I've seen these varying from just over $200, like $205, all the way up to around $240. But I think on average, they're kind of $230, $240. And I think for what you get, that is a pretty good price for these. And that's about it for this video. If you want to see the full written review, there is a link in the description below. And there is also links to all my social media channels. If you are a Discord user, make sure you jump over to our Discord channel and join the chat there. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, ParFam audiophile style. And if you're new to the channel and want to see more reviews like this in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And until next time, see you later.